Evening, everybody. Thanks for joining me for our nerd out look at the storm that's going to come through tomorrow. Continues to be an interesting storm in terms of it's right on the borderline. I feel like every winter storm so far this year has been not an easy forecast. You know, we could just use one of these coastal storms that just slides right up the coast, and we're looking at 10 to 16 inches of snow, and it's easy to just kind of tell that, and there's not a lot of debate about whether that's going to happen or not. But alas, that's not what's happening currently with the weather. Every storm has its own challenges, and even storms like that obviously would. But this storm has all sorts of craziness associated with it, so we're going to take a long look at, or quite a long look for, by my standards at least, for all the details. I know those of you who are watching, feel free to type in questions. I'd love to get questions and try to answer them in live time. Nerdy questions or basic questions doesn't really matter. This will be somewhat nerdy, the way that the stuff we're going to talk about tonight, but feel free to ask just kind of basic questions about the storm as well. Too, this is supposed to just sort of be a fun chance for those of you who are specifically interested in kind of some of the more specific issues that we deal with weather. With that in mind, just making sure, taking a quick couple seconds to make sure things are going all right online. And yes, so here is, let's start with satellite imagery, because that's going to give us our first look at what's going on. You can see our main storm system that brought the blizzard to the upper Midwest yesterday is currently sliding, and pretty much we talked this morning about how this was vertically stacked, which means that the storm has just trying to all right, sorry. Making sure I'm not getting any questions. So the storm is vertically stacked. This storm is like fully developed, and it's not really strengthening more. If anything, it's actually weakening at this point. But as you can see, we've got all these bright clouds, all these high clouds forming, and we do have a surface low pressure system that is starting to develop just off the east coast, and that is going to slide to the north. Right now, it looks like it's going to track over central New Hampshire, maybe eastern New Hampshire, which puts us just on the colder side of the storm. There isn't a lot of real cold air around, but there is some cold air, so that will just enough trapped in so that we probably will see, so we probably will see quite a bit of snow here, particularly anybody over 1,500 feet. Now, a lot of us in southern Vermont live below 1,500 feet, so a lot of us are going to see kind of a sloppy couple inches of snow. Particularly everybody under 1,000 feet, I think, is in pretty good shape in terms of not seeing significant snow. But everybody from 1,000 feet to 1,500 feet, you're kind of in the transition zone. That happens to be where I live. And then if you're above that, above 1,500 feet, I think you're going to see quite a bit of snow. Above 2,000 feet, I think even a little more than I was thinking this morning. Definitely plowable probably above 1,500 feet, but above 2,000 feet, definitely plowable snow. And maybe even plowable down to 1,000 feet. It's real kind of close there. In terms of the surface low pressure system, here's our low pressure, and you can see just in the analysis the beginnings of this low pressure system that has developed kind of just off the Virginia coast, and that's the storm that's going to head in our direction. We do have a high pressure system to our north. In some ways, this is a good setup, but except there's not real cold air in Canada. We've talked a lot about that over the last few days, so I won't go beat that anymore. But in terms of this is a map that talks about that looks at 6-hour surface pressure change. So basically, when you have a low pressure system developing, you would see the bluer colors here, which means that pressure is decreasing, surface pressure is decreasing, and you can see that right along the Virginia coast, surface pressures have been dropping, letting you know that there is a surface. You also have some kind of with the whole front associated here, which is normal. A front usually brings a pressure drop, but you can see even a few of the brighter or the cooler colors here over eastern Virginia, indicating that is indeed where our low pressure system is developing. Also, as our low pressure system is slowly moving away and also weakening, we see that where we had low pressure yesterday over Iowa, that is starting to really the pressure is starting to go up, which happens in the wake of a low pressure system. So that's that's just an interesting map. One of the things that we often can kind of look for in terms of that's probably how they came up with the low pressure, because it's hard on the analysis to see that the low pressure system has actually developed off the coast of Virginia, but the pressure tendencies will sometimes give you a hint about that. So that's just where there's a little bit of an indication of that kind of information. All right, now we've got all sorts of other information. Let's not start there. Let's start with a map of temperatures, and I'm actually going to just get myself out of the way here so that it's a little easier to see, and I will show on. Actually, let me try to circle some things. So we can see that we're in. We got a lot of the places up in the mountains here. Here's in Londonderry, we're in the 30s. Wardsboro in the low 31. Manchester, we're kind of in mid 30s as we're a little lower down in elevation. Some of these aren't super easy to see, but let me go back and clear those out. Let me zoom out just a little bit on this map if I can. Is it not going to let me? Let's zoom out a little bit. Okay, we're going to have to reload the map. That'll take a second. But as we reload the map there, and let's just look at temperature. You don't need to see. Winds are basically calm here. You can see that in general, at low elevations, we are a little bit above freezing. We're in the mid 30s, mostly in the Connecticut River Valley. 35 in Bennington, 36 up here. That looks like that's probably in Arlington. Maybe not quite in Arlington, but anyway, so that's our temperatures are just above freezing. But if you get into the along the spine of the Green Mountains, most of us are just right around freezing already. If we then look at where are we here? That's a sounding. I didn't want to do that quite yet. There's radar. Sorry. If we look at some temperatures, you might say, well, we're already almost at freezing. Is it going to really rain? If we look at these are just the list of the temperature sites in some of the temperature sites. Oh, good. A couple questions here before I move on. Justin, yeah, Okemo, I think the ski area, and particularly at Okemo, we're looking at probably 6 to 9 inches of snow, I think, at Okemo. It's going to be heavy, wet snow at Okemo. For my kiddos, Kathleen, the sledding, it will be okay for sledding. It's going to be a sticky snow, and particularly at our house, I think it's going to be slushy snow. It'd be great snowman snow, but we'll probably change to rain for a bit of time. Below at about 1,000 feet. I think it stays mostly all snow above 1,500 feet, particularly above 2,000. So yeah, good questions. And I think those Okemo predictions would be similar for Stratton and Bromley. Most of the ski areas are pretty similar in their elevations, and we're talking somewhere in the 6 to 9 inches of snow range, I think, for most of the ski areas. Probably at the summits, you might even see up to a foot of snow at the very highest, close to 3,000 feet where a lot of the ski areas are in terms of snowfall. So, and it will be heavy, wet snow. It'll be great base-making snow, not the best. It's not going to be a great powder day on Sunday, but it will be still good skiing snow and really should help with some of those trails that could just use a little pasting of snow. So, good stuff. Where was I here? Back to talking about some of these. So where we see the temperatures, we're gonna talk about wet bulb. And so what a wet bulb temperature is the temperature at which the air would have to cool down to in order to get to 100% relative humidity. Now we're getting nerdy now. Why is that important? Well, when it starts to precipitate, Ben, road conditions heading to Bennington Saturday afternoon. I think by Saturday afternoon, most of the roadway to Bennington will be okay, except for Route 11 over Peru. By Bromley, it'll probably still be pretty ugly going over the top of the mountain. The later in the afternoon you get, probably the better. The heaviest snow is going to fall in the morning. So, and then the ride home actually on Sunday, late night on Saturday could still be a little slick going up over Bromley because we'll get upslope snow. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. So yeah, road conditions, you should be prepared for at least quite a bit of slush on the roads. But once you get to Manchester, I think it'll be okay. I think the roads will be just fine. Route 7 from Manchester to Bennington should be fine by Saturday afternoon. Good question. So where is it? Oh yeah, wet bulb. So wet bulb temperature is the temperature at which the air would have to cool down so that the dew point is the temperature at which the air would have to cool down to in order to for it to be at 100% relative humidity. But the wet bulb temperature takes into account both and kind of assumes that what will actually happen is that the dew point will rise and the temperature will come down, and they'll meet in the middle when it starts to precipitate, which is what usually happens due to the way that the evaporation happens when liquid droplets or ice crystals fall into air. And so why that's important is because the wet bulb temperature is often the temperature you'll get to when it starts to precipitate, and if it's the temperature outside at the moment is actually not what's the most important in terms of whether you're going to see snow or rain. The wet bulb temperature often dictates that much more in a much more clear way. And so even though a lot of our temperatures currently are above freezing in a lot of, especially these are mostly our valley areas where there's mostly where there is our airports in Vermont. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. Even though we're mostly above freezing, our wet bulb temperatures are often below. And I've got a calculator here because this is not an easy formula. So, for instance, let's see here. So, for instance, in Springfield, it was 34. This is at 5 p.m. So it was 34 degrees. But the but the relative humidity was 75%. You can see that right there. Whoops, let me highlight it for you. So if you plug those numbers in to this nifty wet bulb calculator I found, and 75, you can see that the wet bulb temperature is 30.256, so 30 degrees. So if it started to precipitate right now in Springfield, it would almost certainly be snow. If we look at some of the other areas, so like Rutland is it's a little bit warmer. It's actually 36 degrees in Rutland, and still get a 75%. Rutland right now, it's right at 32 degrees, so we'd probably be some flakes mixed in, and then also a little bit of rain in Rutland right at the moment. Now, we're obviously temperatures aren't going to stay exactly the same as where they are right now, but that's a good indication in a lot of regards as to where precipitation is. You can also see that it's real close. We're right on the borderline. Oops, let me get my cursor back over here. I was trying to pull myself back up. We're right on the borderline between rain and snow. Another way to kind of look and try to figure out where is the rain and snow line going to happen, this is a graph of temperature and dew point by elevation. Again, I promised we'd get nerdy. This is nerdy. Not if you're a meteorologist, it's not nerdy, but if you didn't ever take a weather class, you've never seen a map like this before on the news. That's okay. Let me get myself out of the way again because I'm not helpful in the way. But let me draw this red line here indicates temperature, so that as you go up in the elevation. And quick weather lesson for you. Usually what happens is temperature in general decreases. And it doesn't, going straight up isn't a straight temperature line, actually. The temperature lines run like, this is the 10 degree Celsius temperature line as you go up in altitude. So generally it gets colder as we go up in the atmosphere. So here you can see and this is very typical, we get colder as we go up in elevation. And then we hit what's called the tropopause, which is where which is the kind of the beginning of what we would think of as which is analyzed right there. That's the layer at which all the weather happens from here down for the most part in the atmosphere. Everything above here, clouds all happen in the lower part of the atmosphere. Once you get above that, actually the temperature does tend to increase, and we call that's the stratosphere. And then there's a couple more layers above that, but for all practical purposes, that's what's important for weather. So one thing we'll see here's the 0 degree line. And you'll see that we're pretty much below freezing, at least currently. This was actually at 12Z. That's the last time they launched a balloon in Albany. And so at 12Z, which is actually about 7 o'clock this morning. They're actually about to launch the evening balloon now. So it'll be interesting to see what that shows. But as of this morning, while it isn't real cold, we're definitely basically below freezing. And also, you can see that there's quite a bit of dry air in here. Which you can kind of see the difference because here's your dew point line, and you can see that there's a big difference between the two. And whenever there's a big difference between these two lines, that means it's dry at that layer of the atmosphere, which means that as you moisten it up, it'll pull this line, it'll pull the temperature line in this direction because that's what happens when you moisten that cools the atmosphere off. So it's likely that. That will pull everything, to start at least, below freezing at mid-levels of the atmosphere. And if we look at radar, we see that we're not quite there yet. Oops, let me get rid of my squiggle. All right. And let me zoom in so we can actually see what's going on radar. If we look at radar, we'll notice that mostly all rain so far. I couldn't find any reports out of Pennsylvania where snow was actually touching the ground, at least as of the 5 p.m. reports. And this will be the case until we get close to here. The models really don't bring much snow into this band as it moves north until we get to kind of western Massachusetts. And then it's kind of elevation driven. So that's sort of our setup for what's going on. Let's take a quick look at some of the practical stuff that's happening with our forecast. Oops, there's questions. Let's look at the storm highlights. So, not a lot has changed in terms of the forecast, except that I think we're just a tiny bit colder, so I think we will see the potential for just a little bit more snow than we were probably initially anticipating. Precipitation starts before dawn, probably by about 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. And it will start as snow above 1,000 feet. And then everyone below 2,000 feet mixes with and changes over to rain during the day. Might stay mostly snow for everybody even above 1,500 feet. Steady precipitation ends Saturday evening, but upslope snow will continue on the backside through Sunday morning, and the winds will gust. It's going to be a little gusty out there, nothing too crazy. 35 miles an hour, I think, is what we're looking at. And then I think there's some possibility of power outages, particularly above 1,500 feet. We'll have to keep a close eye on that. In terms of snowfall totals, below 1,000 feet, an inch or two of slush. So that's mostly if you're in the Connecticut River Valley, if you're over in the Bennington area, you'd definitely be unlikely, I think, to see more than an inch or two of slush. Between 1,000 and 1,500 feet, which includes a lot of those areas just to the west of the Connecticut River Valley, places like Townsend, even like western side of Springfield, certainly like Chester would be included in this, Proctorsville, Cavendish kind of areas. If you had certainly like Wilmington would be included in this, maybe even in those areas. I think you're going to see 2 to 5 inches of snow probably, particularly and the higher up you go, the closer to the 5 inches. If you're 1,500 to 2,000 feet, this is places like a lot of Weston is at that elevation. Most of Landgrove is at that elevation. Peru would be there. Winhall, a lot of Winhall is there. Stratton certainly is there. Places like Woodford and Searsburg. You head north of here, places like Mount Holly. A lot of places like that probably see 3 to 6 inches of snow. And then above 2,000 feet, which is basically mostly like the ski areas and the areas right around the ski areas, 5 to 9 inches of snow. And I think the ski areas, it's like a 6 to 9 inch of heavy wet snow. Closer to the 9 to 10 inches of snow at the very peaks, more like 6 at the base lodges. But mostly snow there. There may be a little bit of rain mixed in as precipitation lightens up in the afternoon. But then we'll all turn back to snow Saturday evening. And areas in Windham and Windsor County just get a coating on that backside. But a lot of the places along the spine of the greens could get another 2 to 5 inches of snow, particularly the western side. So, you can see the list of towns there that are likely to see that. So, and the ski areas will probably get a couple inches out of that kind of storm as well. So that's what we're looking for. Should be an interesting storm. Things to watch out for. How much heavy wet snow we get. This is the kind of snow. Yes, David. We shouldn't really see anything before 4 a.m. tomorrow. That's when, at least, certainly no accumulating snow until 4 a.m. or so tomorrow morning. In terms of, where was I? Oh yeah. So in terms of I lost my train of thought. This is the problem with talking for 20 straight minutes. In terms of what to worry about. If the heaviest, wettest snow, like the stuff that's really pasty, it can take as little as 4 to 5 inches of that kind of snow can cause power outages. So what you are going to want to be really careful of is if you notice that we're up to 3 or 4 inches of snow, or 2 or 3 inches of snow, and it's still coming down as snow, and it seems to really be sticking on the trees. That's the time to start to prep. It means it may change to rain and you may be okay, but it also may not change to rain, and you may only be an hour away from all of a sudden starting to lose power. I don't think we're going to see widespread power outages because I think that's going to happen above 1,500 feet, which just limits the amount of people that can be affected. But it's definitely possible, and this is the kind of snow from 1,500 to 2,000 feet where there's like 4 to 6 inches of really heavy wet snow. It is entirely possible that that there'll be quite a bit of tree damage at that level. I don't think it'll be as bad as the storm like 3 Novembers at the end of 3 Novembers ago or 2 Novembers ago. I don't remember exactly. I think it was 2 Novembers ago, I guess. When a lot of places in Windham County and Windsor County lost power for days. I'm hopeful that won't happen, but it is the kind of storm that could happen. There's plenty of precip associated with the storm, and it's hard. It won't be possible to really know if that's going to happen or not until basically it happens. But I don't think you need to be freaked out about the chance for that. But you should be prepared that it's possible you could lose power. And especially if you wake up tomorrow morning and you notice, oh, it's still snowing. It's snowing really hard, and it's really heavy, wet snow, and the trees are starting to bend. That might be a time, if you got anything you need to do at your house to get ready for power outage, just do it to be ready, and then we'll kind of deal with it as we go. So that's what things are looking like. I certainly feel free to ask questions in the comments of the video. If you're watching this after it was live recorded, you can ask questions, or you can always ask questions to me on Facebook Direct. I'm always happy to answer them that way. And yeah, otherwise, I hope you have a good evening. And I will be back. I'll certainly be back on Monday morning for a look at the work week forecast. Depending on what things are looking like tomorrow morning, I'll probably at least post some stuff online. I don't know if I'll have a video, but I'll post some stuff online. All right. Thanks everybody for supporting the channel. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, you should do that because it'll help. It helps make sure that you get updates and notices on when I'm going to have live streams. And it also just helps with making sure that more people get a chance to see what's going on weather-wise. And thank you again for joining me for a little bit of nerdy weather stuff. All right, have a good evening, and stay safe out there tomorrow.